Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Reginald the Vampire Season 2, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, first and foremost, Reginald is the only one freaking out about his dream. He brings it up to Sarah, but she just thinks like, you're kind of nervous with everything going on. Obviously, it's kind of an omen of what is to come, especially when they later on get visited by, lo and behold, Claire's dad, who is, his name was it Alta, and he's a incubus. Which I guess in my head, I always, for whatever reason, I've never looked into it, but I've always assumed like an incubus and succubus were like the same thing, just like the gender, like switch, like, I was like, oh, succubi are like the female version, and then like incubus are like the male version. That was always my assumption. I don't know. Maybe there's something there to that. I don't know. But that was always my thinking. But yeah, we meet Claire's dad, which was interesting. She continues to be an enigma. So it's like, oh, cool. So the supernatural stuff, I was wondering if that had something to do with your mom. Never even came into my head like, oh, maybe it has something to do with your dad. You know, because apparently it's a subject that Claire never really talks about, at least from Reginald. He's like, it's not something that ever really comes up, you know, but it's like, yeah. But then the conversation then becomes, well, the thing that's visiting her mom, it's like, yeah, the thing I hear her talking to all the time is that, like, could have been my dad. And it's like, is he the one that made her sick? Because she was, like, in bed for, like, a year. So, I mean, for one, it's like, wow, you find out not only is your dad, like, holy crap, he just popped out of nowhere. He's a shapeshifter. You're like, okay, wow. I did think it was interesting immediately being like, okay, so she could do the zappy fingers, but doesn't seem like that's Alta's abilities at all. And even he's like, yeah, we have no idea where that comes from because her mom is 100% human. So it's like, right. Even like her being conceived was kind of a miracle. I don't know if that's just like a incubi typically are maybe infertile. I mean, well, not infertile, but just like they can't have children. Because even they were like, oh, we weren't even trying to have a child. We weren't even thinking about it because I guess it seemed like such an impossibility. And for Claire to be their miracle baby, but her also had those abilities, like maybe something else got mixed in. Like maybe upon her conception, like what else could she be? Like, because she can't shapeshift. Well, her dad said like, right, shapeshifting comes around about third puberty. And she's like, third puberty? Okay, interesting. Because it does make you wonder what the life expectancy of an incubi is, and what does that mean for Claire? You know, it's like that Saiyan conversation, as well as like if you want to go in the invincible route, the Viltrumite life expectancy, and obviously like depending on what species it's fused with will determine like how long you live. But like once again, you know, if you're not familiar with Invincible, at least like the DBZ example of, right, the more of a full-blooded Saiyan you are, the longer your life expectancy, like the slower you age. So it's like Claire's like half human, half incubi, plus something else in that gumbo that is her circumstance. You know, we're still unclear about that. But yeah, I'm bouncing all over the place. But since I am on a Claire subject, I'll stick to it before I circle back to other stuff. But yeah, I love when like Reginald showed up and the way he was talking up her dad. I was like, oh my god, it's Alta in like disguises, and it's like, yeah, his name is Alta, right? It's something like that. If I'm saying the wrong name, I do apologize. But yeah, I was like, oh, that's kind of dickish, showing up as her best friend for the purposes of like, oh, you know that she'll listen to Reginald, and I guess he's been around enough to know who her best friend is, and it's like, yeah, like maybe it'll come off a little better if it comes. But Claire was like, wait, why are you taking his side? It's like, oh, you know, maybe he's a very caring father and this and that. And so it's like, right, you're pretending to be my best friend. You're trying to like gaslight me into like, oh, manipulate me by pretending to be my best friend, like gassing up my dad. I was like, oh, he's kind of me a great guy. He seems pretty awesome, pretty handsome, if I do say so myself, you know. But she actually talks to her mom, because once again, she's under the impression the person that comes to visit her that she always hears her mom talking to is Alta, which it turns out it is, but he's not the reason why she's like sick or whatever. But she won't talk about what that is. In fact, we never get a resolution to what that is. Like, what is it that she's being visited by? Well, it's him, but other than that, like, what is it that she doesn't want Claire to know? It's like, right, broaching the conversation of your dad's a shapeshifter, he's an incubus, like, not something you just casually bring up, so you wanted her to be a little older. It's like, well, she's 13, and those conversations probably would have been better at a young age, but her powers are already developed. And then there's also the fact is, said powers aren't even directly correlated, at least to our knowledge, to her being half incubi. So, but yeah, her mom kind of talks about how her and Ulta met. She was like, yeah, I was just kind of having one of those days where just like everything that went wrong could go wrong. And he first popped up as a dog licking the tears off my face. And they kind of hit it off. She was looking for something a little extraordinary and found it, And it turns out her dad, Claire's dad, has actually been in her life a lot more than she realizes. It's like, oh yeah, remember that old neighbor we used to have, for a few months who taught you checkers? Yeah, that was your dad. It was like, oh, interesting. Like, that is kind of interesting. Like, there's also if you want to look at it from a dark perspective, you could be like, yeah, but who's to say he necessarily was all this stuff? He could be like, oh, that was me, but it's like, can you be sure? She even had to stop at one point asking Sarah, it's like, oh, what was the name of your sister? She's like, you mean my brother? Yeah, what was his name? She's like, Levi? He was like, okay, just making sure that Sarah is actually Sarah. It is that interesting thing of, you don't know who to really trust. But I doubt he'd do something as nefarious as pretending to be like, oh yeah, those people that were in your life who were crucial to you, that wasn't actually me, but I'm going to take credit for being those people. It's like, no, I think it really was him. It's actually kind of sweet knowing, like, for whatever reason, he wasn't in her life directly, but he was indirectly. Because he was shocked to have a kid, but he was also excited. But I wonder, why wasn't he ever present in her life? He apparently kind of has a notorious... He's kind of a notorious, I guess con artist would be befitting, considering apparently he owes a lot of the vampires $50 each for whatever reason. He's a notorious liar, which all that kind of comes with, once again, being kind of a con artist, which comes with being a shapeshifter. But maybe that's why he had to be on the down low, because he was like, yeah, I'm running for people, so I couldn't directly be in your life, Claire, but I could also directly be in your life by pretending to be other people and other things that you just didn't realize that was me. So... It is kind of sweet that we get to see, like, the relationship between her mom and her dad. It does seem like there is, like, genuine love there, and like I said, it does seem like he comes to visit her from time to time. So it's not like, oh, in all of Claire's life they haven't interacted. It's like they have, like, but they're still keeping something from Claire. They don't know what her constitution is, and they say, like, at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with her. But we still know that her mom is hiding something from her. We just don't know what. Claire continuing to be the biggest enigma in the show. Alta's appearance isn't just about Claire. It ended up being a massive part of this. But he did say, like, oh, I'm also here because word around the office is that angels are coming and bringing a catastrophe, which he's like, I don't know where they're going to be here, which is funny considering there's at least, well, there was two, but one of them's dead now because of Nikki, which we haven't circled back to that storyline of Nikki and Ashley, or where they are post Nikki killing a angel, because that could have clarified some of the, oh, there's no angels here on Earth. They wouldn't come down here on Earth. They haven't been down here in a long time. Nikki and Ashley could confirm, like, no, they are. Considering we haven't seen them, I guess Nikki's trying to do everything she can to repair things with Ashley. And to be fair, there was an angel murdered at their place of employment, so she's probably avoiding the place because of that. I don't know. Maybe the next episode will kind of touch on catching up with them, but yeah, it just makes it so that Reginald, who believes Ulta, whereas everyone else is like, oh, he's a liar, you can't trust him, it coincides with what Reginald saw in his dreams of, yeah, angels, being visited by the dude who was pretending to be this and that, and, the blue flames that burn him. So he's a lot more willing to believe the whole angel approach, which is kind of a complicated thing for Sarah, because for her, everything she's ever known, she's like, right, it was a lie she believed was used to manipulate her. But it's like, if it is true, then if angels really exist, then that means, like, maybe everything they told me wasn't a lie. I think two things can be true. That yes, a lot of that religion or whatever cult you were a part of was trying to manipulate you, but they just happened to hit the nail on the board, like, a clock's wrong twice a day. So yeah, they were right about the angel stuff, or maybe they were just so full of shit that their bullshit just happened to coincide with something real. There is, some fact even in, like, bullshit. Like, there's some monochrome of truth that acts as the foundation for BS. So it could be that type of thing. That's going to be interesting to see. Especially considering Sarah's actually run into an angel. She continues to run into an angel, not realizing she's actually met one. the weirdo that keeps asking her questions because he's trying to understand, the human condition. And obviously he's latched on to Sarah. I wonder, does he latch on to her specifically just because, well, she gave you, your smoothie and everything. So maybe just like because her kindness, or maybe do you know about, because we don't know what an angel's knowledge is of humans. Like, do you know Sarah specifically of, well, like Reginald and all that around her, but what about her specifically, and especially her ties to a family that kind of worships you guys, and that, I'm like, which once again I brought up I think last episode of, I'm curious how much of her family might pop up in this story, especially considering angels are here. So I had to circle back really quickly, going back to Ulta. I want to bring up the fact that he's like, oh yeah, like word around the office and, gossip. I'm like, he is a demon, so where were you? Like, were you like in hell or just a demon world? Because he talks about he goes through different planes of existence. So like there are multiple dimensions. So there's probably heaven, hell, some earth in between, kind of as like the middle realm, but probably like other planes of existence. So maybe he's from like a very specific demon one, or maybe it is hell. I don't know. But it's like, I guess like celestial business would like circulate throughout the supernatural world, at least to the other planes of existence. It's interesting because obviously it didn't circulate to the vampires, because despite being a different species, they're the other side of the coin when it comes to humans. So it's like, once again, humans were Abel, vampires were Cain type of situation. So either way, this angel business is coming up just as Maurice is preparing for his first council meeting, which he's still kind of being like, no. How about you come up with all the ideas, Reginald, and I'll just kind of sign off. But Reginald's just like, nah, man, it doesn't work like that. You basically have to get your shit together and take the job. You got it, But he's like, man, I fought against the establishment. He's like, yeah, but now you are the establishment. He's like, take that back. How dare you insult me by saying that? But it's like, yeah, there's a lot of good that can be done with me as your right-hand guy, but it's all got to come down to you. Once again, you want to do the Batman thing, you got to do the Bruce Wayne of it all too. So shows up to the council meeting, which it's not even a in-person thing because it's all virtual now. Only people that show up is LeBron and what's-her-face, just to cause problems trying to get Maurice kicked out. Luckily, Reginald's kind of read the ins and outs of all the rules, so he came prepared. Still, they were able to kind of legally knock Maurice off the council seat because he murdered what's-his-face last season. But it's like, yeah, but to be fair, like, power has always been taken in a similar fashion, so it's kind of precedent has been set, so it's not like you can use that against him, considering other leaders have gotten power in that same position by killing the predecessor. So, it's not like Maurice was out of pocket there. But obviously Reginald's trying to push their point of equality across the vampires and stuff, of like, basically LeBron was like, basically we spent like $1 billion creating kind of like the perfect vampire PR team, even saying like, right, where do you think Twilight came from? You think it was just some movie people that picked Robert Pattinson for Edward Cullen? Yeah, right. It's so funny to think like, oh yeah, that's like vampire like PR. There's something else I always think of like examples of stuff, and I always pisses me off when I can't remember the exact pop cultural reference I'm trying to make. But I feel like there's some movie, most likely a TV show, that dabbled in a thing of like, oh yeah, supernatural beings put out false information just to keep the normies not realizing what's going on. I'm trying to remember what that was. I'm sure there's plenty of things that have like a more magical or supernatural side of things that do that, but I feel like there's one specific example I just can't think of off the top of my head, and it bothers the hell out of me. Was finally able to get LeBron to calm down by Maurice having to snap his neck. It's like, yeah, like had to kind of push Maurice to act more like the head guy and just snap his neck just to shut him up. But Maurice is like, right, I've got my perspective on how I want to run things, and we're going to shift things over to that, to match that. But sadly, there is a tradition that every, like, the new chosen one, basically you end off that whole situation by basically executing someone, and lo and behold, who gets executed, who's set up for execution, except for Angela, which is interesting. At first I was like, oh, they did kind of snatch her, like, trailer earlier in the episode, it got told. I was like, what was up with that? Well, because it turns out they've caught her using her powers. Like, the guy she compelled to basically get food. Like, she's like, oh, I've got this glamorous, like, bottle to put blood in and stuff. But it's like, wow, like, you guys must have eyes and ears everywhere. I'm like, how the hell did you know she did that for something so trivial? How'd you pick up on it? But it's like, right, they're serious about, like, right, the council brought down that punishment, so she kind of has to stick to it. Plus, they also found out what she did last season of, yeah, you glamored your lover to remember everything you glamored them to forget. And she's like, in my defense, I was in love. And it's like, oh boy. So she was in the process of being executed. But then luckily there was another prisoner there who wanted to die. You know, which I love LeBron being like, well, why didn't he just walk out in the sun? Everyone's like, Jesus. He's like, what? Why am I so, like, crass for bringing up that point? It's like, if you don't want to live as a creature of the night, just walk out in the sun and save us all the trouble. It's only saying that because now it's come back to bite them in the ass, and now they can't execute Angela. Well, kind of a moot point, because it turns out the guy wasn't really who he claimed to be. He's actually the angel that was in Reggie's dream, and he ends up having a lot of power to the point he could freeze time and stop Maurice from even getting close to him. And he makes a declaration about the vampires. It's like, right, you were made, but you were a mistake. Humans created such beauty and discovery, which is, I'm like, you're acting like the vampires are the only plague on all existence. Like, humanity can be a plague in itself, but it's like, yeah, I guess it's like comparing sins and stuff. It's like the sins of vampires and the death and destruction and blood they leave in their wake, I guess, pales in comparison to what the humans do. At least the humans have the balance of, with all the shitty things that we do a lot of good and great things too. You know, but it's also like, yeah, it feels like you're focusing on all the good that humans do, not all the shit that they do. But I guess that might also just be showcasing how much the vampires fuck up. That it's like, you do such little good and only do bad because you're selfish and vain pricks, which, hey, Reggie's trying to change all that, but he's not given the chance. It's like, because vampires been given eternity, and what have they done? They've squandered it and just leaned into being the monsters that they are. And so he's giving them 30 days. You've got a month until I come back and wipe you all out. It's like, what are they supposed to do in that month? I mean, they only have one choice. They have to prepare for war. But also, it's like, what else can they do? What do you want us to do? Like, go to a different dimension or something? Like, leave this plane of existence? Like, what do you actually want them to be able to do in that 30 days is what I'm so curious about. I mean, it's not like angels aren't unkillable. They are, but Home Dude seems like he might be top brass of angels. I don't know if he's on some like archangel type of shit. They said his name, but I was like, I'm not well versed in all the angels. There's a lot of them. I've only picked up a few names here and there because of some of the biblical stuff I know, mainly supernatural, and obviously Lucifer are kind of my examples of, oh yeah, here's some angels, some of which might be real from the Bible, some might not. Once again, I don't know. But, yeah, so that's going to be interesting, especially considering, like, well, does that dude from Reggie's dream know about the other angel that's on Earth who orchestrated to have his partner killed? Because Home Dude's the one that was praying about stuff, but I don't know if those messages he was saying got to heaven. So there's a lot on that front. So first council meeting kind of ended with a blast and an interesting reveal. Granted, the TV kind of messed up, so a lot of the other vampires didn't get to see that, but it adds validity to what Reggie said, and it kind of makes it go, I guess Alto wasn't lying, and also, I guess Reggie's not the moron, idiot sucker that everyone kind of painted him as. So we have that element to it. And then finally we have the whole Todd and Mike thing, which I thought was kind of interesting and cute, where, you know, Todd is still, you know, considering being a vampire. He's like, oh, I'm kind of like the perfect subject to be one. But Mike feels like he's not taking this seriously because it's like, right, the test that Reggie took last season is like, well, that's one thing. That doesn't, you might have the physical advantage depending on what it is. You might end up taking tests. Like, the test varies from person to person. So you might end up doing a whole bunch of paperwork, in fact. It's just from Mike's concern of like, right, he cares about Todd, and it's like, right, being a vampire isn't all kosher. Like, you like being in the sun? He's like, well, I did too, but look, it burns us. Like, you have to take this serious. You have to really think about what it means to be a vampire, to live that long. It isn't all going to be kosher. Like, it is a blessing. It can be a blessing, but it can also be a curse. It's just all about perspective. And, you know, because some people, like Reggie, wasn't really fully given a choice, but he kind of was. Maurice kind of gave him one, but Well, did Maurice give him one? I don't remember at the time. Once again, it's been a while since season 1, so I don't remember. And Todd's trying to make that choice, but it's like, you can't go into this with just shallow, vain reasons. You have to think about it, because once it's done, there's no one doing it. So he tried to present the Mike like, hey, like, wanted to give him the sales pitch of like, oh yeah, look what I did. I've got a blood connect, got you this particular blood. I kind of made it a smoothie. But Mike is like, yeah, but what we do is visceral and disgusting. So he showcased like, yeah, this is what it's like to feed. And then Todd's like, yeah, remember. I don't know if that's him remembering like when Reggie fed on him or any other instances of him seeing a vampire feed. But he's like, yeah, he was actually perfectly fine with it. It's just, there's elements to being restricted as a human where he feels like, right, he's in shape and he's meant to be a certain way. It's like, right, I can't really show my feelings. I'm meant to be strong. A lot of societal things of like, yeah, if you're a man, you're going to do this. You're a woman, you need to fit this way. Like, you can't step outside of those boundaries, obviously, but for some people, they feel like they're trapped and adherent to those. And Todd feels like becoming a vampire will give him freedom, that he'll just be able to do what he wants to. He doesn't have to adhere to anyone else. There is a freedom in being a vampire that he wants that freedom to kind of be himself. And it's like, yeah, if I want to kiss my friend, I can kiss my friend. It's like, oh, I thought you said you forgot about that, you know? But it's like, yeah, there's a little sweet romance brewing there. I mean, I'm sure there is also that element to it too for Todd of like, yeah, like he has felt restrained in who he can be. Like, he feels like by being a vampire, you can just be your truest self. I mean, you know, depending on the lore, like vampirism enhances, like heightens like your emotions and everything that was already there. And if you're someone that probably never was able to kind of fully embrace those emotions, it just makes you maybe a magnified. Well, I mean, I'm sure it magnifies certain elements of your personality, as we've seen, and you know, not just in this show, but also across a lot of vampire fiction. And so, like, if you're able to kind of be, like, basically the truest version of yourself that you feel like you never can be. So, it's going to be interesting to see. Will Todd... I'd assume we're going to end with Todd being all vampired up. But, you know, I don't know. I don't know. Because Mike still says, like, oh, he's not ready. But we'll see whether he stays human by the end of the series. It might be a situation where, kind of similar to Reggie, where it's like, kind of have no choices. The only way to save your life is to go full vamp. So... we'll see how that all plays out. But some very, very interesting developments all across the board. I'm excited to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this, which obviously I'm getting to these episodes late, so episode 3 is already out. So, but yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.